Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. Welcome here to the Raiders facility, where just a few moments ago the um, coordinators both spoke, and practice is going on right now. We'll be in the locker room in a little bit. I want to talk today very simple about the present, the future, and reality. Um, I want to start by addressing the role of a media member and a beat writer because there are a couple of things that I don't think people understand. I don't work for the team, I don't get paid for the team, I'm not a fan of the team. So my job is to assimilate all the information that I can. Now, when you work with people on a regular basis and get to know them, you build friendships and everything else. I'm not pretending like that does not happen. But when you don't work for the team, I mean, when you're not a fan of the team, I think it brings a different perspective. My job is to ask fair, respectful, honest questions. And sometimes you can ask very difficult questions, and people think, well, why didn't you say, you blankety blank, stupid, blankety blank, whatever. Well, that's not professional. And it's not how you do things. And I'm a professional and I'm proud of that. I have been very critical of Luke Getsy. That is going to continue today. In fact, it may get ramped up a little bit, but I have zero agenda against him. I think he's a top-notch human being and a good guy. Um, so why would I go attack somebody that I think's a good person? Number one. Number two, it's not professional. But I did ask him a very poignant question. Um, and I don't think today was a good press conference for him. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I asked him about the 1st and 10 and the 2nd and 18, running the ball up the middle, yet throwing on 3rd down. AP, you may remember when I talked to him on Monday, was even a little like, wondering if maybe do something different on one of those downs. You can go watch that video or listen to the audio if you want. I've put it up. Um, it's not my job to sit there and argue with him. I'm not his boss. He gave me his answer. And so then my job is to pontificate on that answer in talking to you. In the same press conference today, and again, the audio and video are up, you can go watch it. He talked about sticking with the hot hand, yet he didn't with Alexander Madison. It made no sense to me at all. If you're going to say you're going to stick with the hot hand, why do you go away from Alex? Now, you may say, and I think it would be a fair argument, why didn't you follow up on that? Okay, well, the press conference was coming to an end, number one. And number two, I'm going to follow that now and watch for a pattern. Does it happen again? Is there other offensive players that start to do good and they go away from him? In which case, then I can say, you said you stick with the hot hand. Yet, that same press conference, we asked you about going away from Alexander Madison when you played the Steelmen and then against the Rams, XYZ. So it's not my job to argue with them. It'd be like me arguing with your wife. She's not my wife. They're not my employee. And my job is to ask him for his answer and then take his answer and then pontificate, agree or disagree with his answer. I don't know how you can say that we stick with the hot hand and then go away from it with Alexander Madison. That tells me that either the awareness wasn't there that they'd went away from it. That could be it. I don't think that Luke Getsy is unaware. He's a very smart man, but it's a possibility, and I'm trying to put that out there for you. B, it was scripted, and so they wanted to follow the script. That could be a real possibility. We'll chalk that up as a possibility. Or third, there was something that they weren't happy with. Okay, I don't believe it's that at all. So here's the point. You want to stick with the hot hand, you should stick with what's winning. I don't even know if you young people will appreciate this, but there's an old saying from my childhood, and I think it goes back even to my father's. You dance with the one that brung you. Alexander Madison just marched you down the field for a score. You say you want to stick with the hot hand. Then why didn't you? Again, the week before, I told you I didn't think Luke Getsy had anything to do with the loss up in Denver, and I still don't. I thought it was a great game plan. Player execution was terrible. In this game, you saw terrific player execution the first drive, and then they go away from it. And guess what? Alexander Madison doesn't get to call his number when he goes in and when he goes out. That's on the coaches. So again, I think Luke Getsy and this offense are clearly under the microscope. Clearly. And they have to be. Listen, I don't people are emailing me, what would think he should be upstairs, think he should be downstairs. I don't care where he is. On any team, an offensive coordinator's job is to get an offense that can produce quality points every single week, have continuity of vision. Now, some weeks you're going to play a great defense and maybe it's a race to 17 points. Some weeks you may be playing a tremendous offense and man, you know what your defense is going to do. And you're like, okay, it's a race to 21 or 24, 27, 34. I don't know what that number is, but your offensive coordinator's job is to execute at that level. The Raiders are 2-4. They've lost multiple games that they should have won. And the offense has been a terrible thing to watch this year. At times, good, but overall, been no consistency. This offense has got to get fixed. Period. And let's give them the benefit of this doubt. It's Thursday. They've watched the film. They've been talked to with Antonio. They know what he's looking for. The page has already shifted to Los Angeles. That's one of the disadvantages. I had someone one time say, "Why do you ask so much about previous games at press conferences on 30 when their mind is already there?" Because that's when they're available. If they brought him out right after the game, which is what I think they should do, they won't. Then there's no reason at the Thursday press conference to even have to ask about the previous week, but we don't get them till Thursday. So that's important. You've got to ask that question. And do I think the defense has been perfect? Well, of course not. We've all watched the same. But I think, especially in that last game, you saw the tackling in the second half really struggle. They were exhausted. And you really start building an opportunity. It's not there. I want to make it clear it's not there. You start building, though, an opportunity for frustration with your defense. Oh my God, let's go. Give us a break. And you want to do that. So you get Alexander Madison running the football, which eats the clock. It gives your defense a break, and then you go away from it. And we're going to keep our eyes on that extremely closely. So I hope that you do as well. And we'll keep you updated where everything sits with that. Now, I want to turn attention to the defense, talking about the present, and that's the maturation of Jakorian Bennett. I do not know who asked the question today, and I apologize, or I would credit my colleagues in the media. But they asked about Jakorian Bennett. And you may remember he took a ton of heat last year. And I kept reminding you that Jakorian was a guy that they really believed in him. I know that he doesn't believe this was the case, but I do. And so do many people in the building. He was a starter early, then, had some injury issues and then had some confidence issues. And again, he disagrees on that, and that's fine. Um, but I know there were a lot of people in this building that told me that we just got to get his confidence up. But I kept telling you all summer, he's going to be a good one. He's going to be a good one. You're seeing him right now. He's playing at an elite level. We're 6 games in. Let's not pretend like we're 15. but 6 games in, he is playing like a true stud. He's a stud. Um, and so today someone asked Patrick Graham, what's his next step? And he made a really good point. It was one that I was going to talk to you about. So I credit the media member who asked. Again, I don't remember, or I would tell you I'm not ever trying to hide credit from anybody. Um, but he talked about is now he's got to get one of those interceptions, and then he'll get that confidence back too. Hey, it's okay. I'm going to get interceptions in this league. He's still such a young player, especially when you look at how much time he lost last year in injuries. So this is a kid that's coming along, but keep your eye out for JB to be getting an interception. Keep your eye out for JB to snag one of those. At some point, we're going to see that. At some point, that's going to come and it's going to mature and it's going to be the next part of the evolutionary process in his game that he's going to step up um, and really get to a certain level. I want to talk about Jack Jones. I watched a lot of film of him this morning, a lot. And a couple of things really stood out to me before I got to the building. I was on an airplane, so I watched a ton of them on the airplane. Um, is last week you saw a return to his physicality. Um, that has been missing from him a little bit um, this season. I noticed it missing um, after the Baltimore game specifically. I noticed a little bit in LA against the Bolts, and then Carolina game especially was really bad. But I noticed his physicality is getting back. And I made the prediction before the season, and I don't mind being held accountable. The guy had an amazing offseason and a great training camp. And I made the prediction that he would be an all pro. I think he still could. Um, but I think he's going through a little bit of confidence issue. I'm going to try to talk to him about that this week at practice. But that is a guy that is a ball hawk. I I think the team's slow start affected him in a big way. But that's a guy I'm just going to put a little bug in your ear. I wouldn't turn your back on Jack Jones. He's been fully cognizant that he wasn't physical enough. He talked about that with me. I think it was last week. That he knew that had to come back in his game. That is one thing about him that I really like, and I think you as Raider fans should. Is Jack Jones doesn't BS. If he wasn't good enough, he'll tell you, I wasn't good enough. He isn't a guy that's going to try to make a lot of excuses. He isn't a guy that's going to try to blame himself. I mean, blame other people. He's not a guy that's going to act like he's all of that when he's not playing well. If he were a wide receiver, he's not a guy that's going to drop passes and then complain that he's not getting enough stats. Too soon. Um, that's not him. He's a guy that is going to um, call himself out, and I respect him for that. That is a big deal that you don't always see. Colton Miller is that guy. Max Crosby, there's a lot of them on this team. There are so many good guys. And so I think that's very, very important. But keep your eye on those two. If the Raiders go down to LA and they don't have to beat the Raiders and the Rams, I think they're going to get the win. But I'm not making any predictions because we have to be able to see them go into a game where they're not beating themselves. I know this, and to the best of my knowledge, AP didn't say this on Monday or Wednesday, but there has been a massive uh, emphasis from the coaches this week, talking with the players about execution, about top to bottom, coaches on down to players, better, better play calling, better execution. All of that has been hammered in practice. That's been a very big. It's about us. Let's look in the mirror. I think there's going to be a massive crowd of Raider fans in California. There always is, and Raider fan shows up. They just show up, and it's pretty cool. All right, I want to look ahead to the. We talked about today. We're going to talk about the present and the future, and then reality. I want to talk about the future a little bit because I think this is something that's very, very important. Max Crosby said something earlier this week. I think it was yesterday in the locker room that I'm stunned more people haven't picked up on. And we're going to have an article about this tomorrow at Las Vegas Raiders on Sports Illustrated. But he talked about, I'm not here to rebuild, I'm here to win. That is the message of this team. And I'm seeing a lot of people ask, are they going to go into rebuild? Are they going to tank? Now, I want to address this. First of all, tanking in the NFL doesn't work if you are insinuating play poorly to lose games intentionally. Let me tell you why. Because you got guys on this team, Robert Spillane and others, that have contracts coming up. They have contracts coming up. And those are a big deal. Those are a mammoth deal. And those guys getting contracts, they absolutely aren't going to tank because if their production goes down, if their numbers go down, they're screwed. It hurts their paychecks. And it's against the NFL rules. And one of those guys would and should complain to the NFLPA. Now, there are ways that you tank. Okay. If they traded Spills, said, hey, you know what? We really like Tommy Eichenberg. We're going to put him in the middle. We're going to trade Spills. We're going to, trade other players. Then you could truthfully say, okay, that's real tanking. It's putting young guys in, letting them take their lumps. That's perfectly acceptable and move in that direction. I don't feel like at this point in talking to people inside, I don't think that's the plan now at all. But that is how you would tank. This team's not just going to go out and play like junk because there's too many guys who maybe would never get to play with a new young quarterback who, or play with him long enough for him to be good. That's just not going to happen. It's not reality. So the present is they're in a win now mode. They're in a we need to go do this now mode. They're in an absolute we have to go make this happen now mode. That is the mood of this team. Yep, you may say, well, they're sitting here at 2-4. You're right. But the present modicum of this team is win now. Win now. And that's what we're going to see. That is how they're game planning. It's how they're working at it. If that changes and the organization says, you know what, hey, we're going to build for the future, then I think you'd see a bunch of guys get traded. But I don't, as a matter of fact, I know as of this moment, well, as of this morning, that's not the mindset. So just sharing that with you. I want to talk about the future now and about a Tom Brady. And I'm going to get into Tom a lot coming up here soon, not this week, but soon. A lot of people say to me, do you see him being in an Elway role? No, he's not going to be the GM, but he is going to have a very loud voice. I've talked with a couple of NFL executives who are very familiar with Tom, know him, and they've shared with me some things about what to expect when he, with him in this franchise. I'll get into those again, probably next week, but I am going to get into those and answer those for you. But what you're looking at with this team and what's super important with this team and vital, in my opinion, with this team is understanding exactly what and who they are. And Tom Brady does not, he has built all of his brands as a player and a businessman on winning. Whether you like Tom Brady or not, and I happen to like him, he is all in on winning. He is all committed to winning. He's not going anywhere else but to win. And I can assure you, he did not come to the Raiders for what you've seen the last 20 years. And he is going to have a loud voice. Am I ready to sit here today and say he's going to have the loudest voice in the building? No, I don't believe that. But the loudest voice in the building, Tom has his ear. And I think that I've seen a lot of people reporting. I think people are underestimating what Tom Brady's influence is going to be. Do I think he's going to be in here drawing up plays on a Tuesday morning for Luke Getsy or whoever the offensive coordinator is, either this year or in 2 years? No, I don't. Not close. Do I think he's going to have a voice in, you know, who gets what positions, talking about in leadership or in coaching, and hey, this is kind of what we're looking for in an offensive scheme or a defensive scheme? You better believe I do think he's going to be involved in all that. His name is tied to it now. His brand is tied to it. And I think he knows exactly where he's at. I want to address one other thing because I think it's really super important. Ezekiel Trezevant and I are working extremely hard on our deep dive article about Devontae. And I want you to know I started writing this article, and I don't have my notes right here, but it was like the sixth, seventh, eighth game of his first year here about the divorce. And Zeke and I are working extremely hard on it. We're still getting some of the final details of what happened at the end. I mean, we know them, but we got to talk to some credible people. But that is going to be an article that you simply do not want to miss. And if you like our deep dive articles, literally taking you behind everything and sharing with you what happened, how did it happen, um, I will tell you, we're going to address all the majors. Were the warning signs there early? When did it start to manifest itself? What was happening? What were some signs that led to it? Were some things that made it uh, noticeable? What was the mood in the locker room? What were people in management or coaching thinking? We're going to lay all that out for you. And I think it's going to put the entirety of it behind you. I want you to know that I think Davante Adams is a tremendous father and a very good husband. And I want you to know that in my time around him, I'm not pretending to be a friend, but I want you to know um, I respect Davante Adams as the person. I have strong opinions on him as a teammate and a football player, and I'm going to get into all of those, and Zeke will as well in our article. But I told you before the trade had even happened that the mood was, oh yeah, his hamstring's going to be perfect just as soon as he gets traded. That's what his teammates thought. It's what they told me. And you be the judge of that. Just like they told me when his hamstring kept him out of the last preseason game. Oh yeah, I bet it's just miraculously better when the regular season starts. And it was. Now, I'm not claiming that he lied. I'm sharing with you what the consensus or the thought process was. You can be the judge of what you think or don't think. I have my opinions. You can have yours. But I think it's going to be fair. And I'm seeing a lot of people take a lot of shots, especially nationally, at the Raiders. And I'm seeing some Raider fans do it. And you're welcome to do whatever you want. But I would ask you to reserve opinion until you read this piece. And I think it's going to give you a new perspective. You may remember when I wrote the deep dive article about how Dave Ziegler could have saved the Raiders. I was critical of Dave too, and said, he should have marched into Mark Davis's office and saying, am I the GM or do I work for Josh? Josh hired him, but what is the semantic here? And that's what cost Dave his job, is he didn't do it, because he certainly disagreed with him, and almost everything they disagreed on, Dave was right. So I think those are some very interesting things to look at. Please keep all of that in mind. Going to have a lot tomorrow to talk to you about. especially about this weekend and moving forward. But the deep dive article is coming out the week of the bye week. We have our daily writing every day that we write and do and cover the team and work that we do there. Plus, we're working hard on writing this. I know part of the article that Zeke was writing this morning, and but it'll be coming out. And as it gets closer, we'll announce you the day and time. I'm thinking probably the Wednesday or Thursday. I think it'll be Thursday of bye week at 12 noon Eastern. That's what I'm thinking. We'll certainly find out. So from here at the facility, thanks for joining us. We'll see all of you again tomorrow. Thanks again for joining us. Appreciate you. God bless you. Have a good day.